Howdy, Dennis Bradford here. Let's think some about being, feeling, and doing better.
Truth is reality. What is? How do we apprehend it? How are we able to tell when we've apprehended it? If you've been following this video sequence, you understand that the medieval worldview included the proposition that there wasn't any special difficulty for us humans with respect to our apprehending reality. After all, if God created everything and is morally good, God would be a deceiver if his human creations had an inherent difficulty about apprehending reality. Unfortunately for any such view about God, we humans do have an inherent defect in our epistemic apparatus. Let P stand for some intelligible proposition. Ask, is P true or false? How can we tell the difference? What is the test for truth? What criteria should we use to tell? This question in epistemology, which is the study of apprehension, is known as the problem of the criterion of truth. There sometimes is no intrinsic or phenomenological difference between a true and a false proposition. In other words, false propositions don't always appear false. False beliefs, again, are simply false propositions that we mistakenly think are true. Since you yourself have had plenty of examples in your life of believing something false, you realize that there's a problem here. Believing something doesn't make it true. Believing something that is false can get you killed or injured. It obstructs making good decisions. The problem of the criterion of truth isn't just an epistemological problem, it's an important problem in our lives. It's worth considering. Propositions cannot simultaneously be both true and false. Let's suppose that Aria genuinely believes that the biblical God exists, and that Bea genuinely believes it's false that the biblical God exists. One of those beliefs is false. This kind of occurrence is commonplace. Every non-idiot understands this. It's the intellectual basis for interpersonal conflicts of all kinds, from minor matters of taste to genocide and war. Let's set the historical context for our discussion here. The original meaning of the Greek word skeptikos was inquirer, or, of course, skeptic. There's no negative connotation. To be skeptical is to be a questioner, an inquirer. That requires an open mind. The first important skeptic in the Western philosophic tradition was Pyrrho, who lived from about 360 BC to about 270 BC in the city of Elis on the Greek Peloponnesus. He didn't leave any philosophical writings, but we do have accounts from some of his students, in particular Timon of Philus. Interestingly, he joined Alexander the Great's court as a philosopher and journeyed from Greece with Alexander's army to India and back. Pyrrho's motivation was ethical. His primary interest was wisdom. In particular, he valued living independently, peacefully, and happily within the customary customs and laws of his city-state. How, according to Pyrrho, do we become wise? Ask and answer 3 questions honestly. First, how is reality constituted? What makes entities real? His answer? We cannot apprehend how entities are constituted. We cannot know how they really are. All we are able to know is how they appear to us. Second, how should we relate to the entities around us? His answer? As much as possible, we should suspend making judgments. Since we don't comprehend entities as they really are, we should remain silent and neither accept nor reject judgments about reality. Third, what will happen if we suspend judgment, admit ignorance, and remain as silent as possible? We won't yearn to know what is in itself. We won't be attached to dogmatic beliefs that are unwarranted. We won't get upset arguing about the nature of reality. We'll live quietly and independently, without moral or psychological attachments, and with detachment from external entities. In that way, we'll live as peacefully and happily as possible. His followers, though, did engage in the philosophic dialectic. The arguments, especially concerning perceptual variation, were so strong that a neo-Pyrrhonian skepticism developed with Gassendi and hastened the end of the medieval synthesis. We'll return to that in subsequent videos when we evaluate Galileo's two fundamental ideas. Cheers!